Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our Parliament for Early Career Researchers online training session. My name's Naomi. I am part of the Knowledge Exchange Unit at the UK Parliament. The point of the Knowledge Exchange Unit is to support and to strengthen the exchange of information and expertise between Parliament and the research community. And we do this in lots of different ways. So we run training for researchers and those working in research. We have online resources about how to work with Parliament as a researcher. We promote opportunities for researchers to work with Parliament. We run some academic fellowships. And really importantly, we are a point of contact for anyone from the research community who would like to know more about working with Parliament as a researcher. So let's get going. Let me take you through what we are planning to cover with you today. I'm going to give you a bit of information about what is the UK Parliament, the difference between Parliament and government, and we'll touch on some information about the devolved administrations as well. Then I'm going to take you through who uses research at the UK Parliament. So we'll talk about select committees, about libraries, POST, the Parliamentary Office of Science and Technology, APPGs or all-party parliamentary groups, and individual MPs and peers as well. And we're going to end by showing you where you can get resources and support, and I'm going to make sure we give you some tips about how to prioritise and target your time. This is obviously a session for early career researchers. We're really aware of the demands on your time and that you might be juggling starting your career, doing lots of teaching, trying to get published, etc. So we really want to give you some really focused tips on how to align yourself and position yourself to make the most of opportunities with the least amount of demand on your time. So let's get started. What is Parliament? So Parliament has three parts. It is the House of Commons. This is where our MPs sit. The House of Lords, down the other end of the building, which is where members of the House of Lords or peers sit. Many members of the House of Lords are appointed. And the monarch as well is an official part of Parliament. So the Queen's role is mainly ceremonial. She signs off every piece of legislation that goes through Parliament. She opens Parliament each year as well. We are going to leave the Queen very respectfully aside for the rest of the session today, because if we're thinking about how you get your research into Parliament, she's not going to be your first port of call. So what does Parliament do? Represents the people. So it is where our MPs go to represent the constituencies for which they've been elected. Checks and challenges the work of government, so scrutiny processes. And quite a bit of what I tell you about this afternoon will be about those scrutiny processes. Makes and changes laws, so legislation. We're not going to talk very much about legislation this afternoon. It's a very complex process. It is possible to feed research into that process, but it can be very difficult. If you have questions about working with legislation or a particular piece of legislation, please feel free to email us and we can take it through you then. Debating the most important issues of the day, so MPs and members of the House of Lords can bring issues for debate to Parliament and get a response from the government on those issues. And finally, checks and approves government spending. So government needs to get tax and budget proposals through Parliament before they can be enacted. So it's a good moment now to pause and look at what is government. This is a very carefully worded sentence. The party or the parties who can command the confidence of the House of Commons forms the government. So it's about that word confidence. The government needs to be able to show that they have the confidence of a majority of our elected representatives, so a majority of our MPs, and that confidence of the House of Commons in the government is what gives the government the right to be in power. So that is the theory of it. The government can usually demonstrate this confidence by winning votes in the House of Commons. Doesn't always play out in exactly that way, but the theory of it is that's what gives the government its power. So what the government does is they run government departments, of course, the Home Office, Department for Education, Department for Work and Pensions, etc., and public services, of course, like the NHS. They propose new laws to Parliament, so most new laws come from the government, and they are accountable back to Parliament. So this is just another way to think about this split, the fact that Parliament and government are not the same thing. So Parliament is in Westminster. We usually hear it referred to as Westminster. It is all MPs, all members of the House of Lords and the Queen. The government is in Whitehall, so just down the road. And it is some MPs, some members of the House of Lords who've been chosen by the Prime Minister to be ministers and to run government departments, to propose new laws, and they are accountable back to Parliament. So you might think that I'm over-egging this point about the difference between Parliament and government, but it's incredibly useful for you as researchers to understand and clarify that difference. You could very easily be working with both institutions, one at a time or either, but you might just wear a different hat depending on which side of this slide you're working on. So if you are, for example, working on the development of a particular policy, or how a policy might be implemented. Perhaps you're responding to a consultation from a government department. Perhaps you are sitting on a working group for a government department looking at the development of policy. That is all working with government. If you are looking at challenging something the government is doing, looking at how is a policy actually being implemented and is it working? If you are perhaps looking at a piece of legislation as it goes on its journey towards becoming a law, that is all working with Parliament. So I hope you can see that you could work with either institution, but you might wear a slightly different hat depending on which. Just before we stop and answer questions, I'll tell you a little bit about the devolved context, which of course we have in the UK. In Northern Ireland, we have the Northern Ireland Executive and the Northern Ireland Assembly, and sitting in that assembly are MLAs, or members of the Legislative Assembly. In Scotland, we have the Scottish Government and the Scottish Parliament, with MSPs sitting there. And in Wales, we have the Welsh Government and Senedd Cymru, or the Welsh Parliament, with Assembly members there. So if you live or work in one of those devolved areas, you have an extra layer of representation and decision making in that area between the UK Parliament and any more local government. So since 1999, certain powers have been devolved to those devolved administrations, and they tend to be things that can be regulated on that more local level. So education, health, justice, agriculture, language. And then some powers are reserved to the UK Parliament, and they tend to be things that affect the country as a whole, for example, defence or foreign policy. So I hope that's given you a little bit of an introduction to Parliament and government and the devolved context in the UK. I'm just going to go over to Sarah now to see if we've got any questions that we can answer.
Great, thanks very much, Naomi. Yeah, so the first question was asking for a bit more information on the devolved legislatures and what the relationship was between working with them compared to working with Westminster. So the structures, the staffing structures are a bit different. So whilst all of the 4 legislatures have committees, which we'll hear more about shortly, and library services, and have plenaries, and have debates in the chamber, and do very similar things, in terms of how you might want to engage, the structures are slightly different. So whilst our committees are supported by committee secretariats, so specialists and clerks who support those committees, in the devolved legislatures, all of the support is given to committees and to members through research and information services, whereas we have the library who provides research and information services. So actually, in a way, that makes it easier for you to engage with the devolved legislatures, because the people who are engaging with research sit purely in the research services and are not attached to committees. 3 research and information services of the 3 devolved legislatures, so Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So we'd definitely encourage you to have a look at their websites to find out more about their ways of working, which are similar to our ways of working, and there will be ways for you to get in contact with them too. They also all have Twitter accounts, so you can follow them there. So we've got another question here, which is whether we're going to cover the relationship between government and the civil service. So we won't cover that in any detail today, because as Naomi said, we're focusing on Parliament today, and Parliament and government are those very separate institutions working together but very separately. But it might be helpful just to articulate that government, as Naomi said, is those elected members, so they are political appointments. But the civil service, so when you hear the word civil service and all those people working in the civil service, they are not political appointments. So they are non-partisan staff who are employed to support the government to enact its work, but they are non-political in the same way that parliamentary staff are non-political. So I think it's quite helpful to have that divide. So there's another good question, which is there a similar training session like this, but dealing with government? So we don't know of something exactly the same, but would certainly encourage you to have a look online for the Open Innovation Team. So they are not our counterparts, they don't do exactly the same team, but they are a team within government who have lots of demand-led work from within government where they have a need for academic research, and so they're reaching out to engage with academics to bring research in to support the work in government. So if you Google Open Innovation Team and get in touch with them, they will be able to provide you with lots of information on working with the executive side, so working with government and not Parliament.
Sarah, thanks so much. And we're going to stop again in a bit to answer some more questions. But before we do that, what I want to take you through is who uses research in the UK Parliament and give you some tips as we go on how you might like to think about your own research feeding in to these places. So first of all, we've got House of Commons and House of Lords select committees. There are also some joint select committees which are having members of both houses on them. Parts of the legislative process use research, particularly public bill committees in the House of Commons. The House of Commons and House of Lords both have libraries that use research as well. And we have POST, the Parliamentary Office of Science and Technology. So as you'll see, some of these boxes are in green, which means they are House of Commons services. Some are in red, which means House of Lords services. And the purple ones are bicameral, which means they work for both houses. So this box is what we could call the more formal processes or teams at Parliament that use research. And then this box appearing at the bottom now is what we could call the more political side of who uses research at Parliament. So we have individual MPs and their researchers, confusingly called researchers. This is MPs' staff who are employed by the MPs to help them with their parliamentary duties. Individual peers and their researchers, again, their staff who are supporting them. And all-party parliamentary groups, which I will tell you a little bit more about later as well. So what I'm going to do is take you on a whistle-stop tour through these parts of Parliament. I'll give you a little bit of information about how they work and how you as a researcher might want to feed in your research. So we'll start with select committees. The point of select committees is to conduct inquiries into various aspects of the government's work, and they will be collecting a lot of evidence on particular subjects and producing reports which make recommendations to government about how the government can change or improve what it's doing in a particular area. In the House of Commons, we have departmental select committees. So there is a select committee for every government department, an education select committee, a health and social care select committee, a foreign affairs select committee, etc. And then there are also some more cross-cutting ones in the House of Commons, such as the Environmental Audit Committee, that looks at the government's environmental impact across departments. And House of Lords committees are all quite cross-cutting as well. So, for example, in the House of Lords, there is a Science and Technology Committee, an Economic Affairs Committee, etc. So the way these committees work, I mentioned that they invite evidence on particular subjects. I'll just pause on the word evidence here, because it doesn't mean what you as a researcher might take evidence to mean. It doesn't mean what we might call evidence in a court of law. Evidence to a select committee is anything submitted to an inquiry that it's running. So it could be a report from a particular charity or organisation working in that area. It could be a paper written by one or more researchers researching into a topic. It could be an email from an individual about their lived experience of that particular issue. It could be a submission from a lobbying company or group about a particular topic. All of those are counted as evidence, and they help the committee to build up a picture of what's happening and to draw some conclusions and make those recommendations. Committees have staff employed by Parliament who run the committee and support the committee to run inquiries, but they also employ subject specialists as specialist advisors for that committee. And these are usually academics or expert practitioners. Sometimes they are employed on a temporary basis just to help the committee run a particular inquiry. Sometimes they're more permanent members of staff. But the point of them is to help the committee identify the issues that need to be investigated, plug them into the right networks of people to talk to, make sure they're asking the right questions, make sure they're looking at the evidence in the right way, etc. So I'll just give you a few tips then about how you can get involved with select committees. So most committees are on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, you can follow select committees, or you can sign up for email alerts for committees that might be of relevance to you. If you spot any inquiries that you think you have something to contribute to, you can submit written evidence. So a lot of evidence is written, but sometimes witnesses are called in for oral evidence sessions. Those are the ones you might have seen them on TV. There's a horseshoe table with the members of the committee sitting around it, and a straight table at the front with some terrified looking people at it. Those are the witnesses asking questions that the MPs or Lords are putting to them. Oral evidence isn't better than written evidence. There's no hierarchy. Written evidence can be exceptionally useful to the committee. So don't feel that it's a kind of aimed to get invited to give oral evidence. Written evidence is brilliant too. If you see any opportunities to be a specialist advisor, then feel free to apply for them. And you could also offer to host a visit for a select committee or give them a private online briefing if you've got some experts that you feel could answer or could speak to a particular inquiry that committee is running. Let's move on to some other bits of Parliament that use research then. So the Commons and Lords libraries. These are physical libraries where books can be borrowed by MPs and Lords, but their main function is to be an impartial information and briefing service for MPs, members of the House of Lords and staff working for them and across both houses. So they produce a really wide range of briefing material. If you have a look at the websites for the Commons and Lords libraries, you'll get a sense of the kind of things they are publishing. A lot of it is in response to questions from MPs, but they are also looking at business that is currently happening in the House and whichever House, and producing briefings on that material. So if there is a piece of legislation going through, the House of Commons Library will produce a briefing on that piece of legislation. If there is a debate coming up this week, the Commons or Lords Libraries will publish a briefing pack to be used in that debate, and that those packs can be used by members of any political party because they are politically impartial. And I mentioned members can ask questions as well, so an MP could get in touch with the Commons Library and ask anything from what is the unemployment in my constituency, I'm going into a debate on fracking, can I have the latest research evidence on this? I'm looking at some regulations on animal cruelty, what are the current regulations on that topic? And I've made them up, but any kind of questions like this can be put to the Commons or Lords Library by the members. In the Commons Library, there are subject specialists who work on producing briefings for their particular policy area. And in the House of Lords, the staff working there are a bit more generalist. If you would like to introduce yourself to the Commons and Lords Libraries to just flag your research and let them know that it's there and who you are, you can contact this email address. It's papers@parliament.uk. No more than about 250 words, just a very quick, this is who I am, this is my research, very happy to talk to you further if you would like some more about my findings. Now I just want to move on and talk to you a little bit about POST, the Parliamentary Office of Science and Technology. So this is probably the closest bridge between research and policy that we have at Parliament. A real core aim of POST is to try and make sure that the best available research evidence is feeding into the work of Parliament. And they do that in a number of different ways. So one of the main things that POST does is work on POST notes. So these are big horizon scanning 4-page briefings. They take about 3 months to produce. They're based on a literature review, lots of interviews with stakeholders, and they're peer reviewed before publication as well. And these are really looking at the next big topics that are going to be coming across the parliamentary agenda in the next year or so. So they also provide advice for committees and libraries and react to what's happening. So Post has produced a huge amount of research briefing material around COVID-19, for example. But they are, whereas the Commons and Lords libraries are reacting to what's happening this week right now in Parliament, Post is taking a bit more of a look ahead. Post also run events which bring together MPs and Lords and experts on particular topics. It's where we're based, so there's lots of knowledge exchange going on between the research community and Parliament through Post. And there are also academic fellowships available at Post. So in terms of getting involved through working with Post, here are some tips for you. I'd really recommend that you sign up to the Post mailing list or follow them on Twitter if you're on Twitter, because then you'll get any opportunities to work with them. Post always publishes the next briefing topics it's going to be working on with the names of the author as well. So if you see any that you feel you could contribute to, you can just get in touch with the author and say, I've got something that could feed into this particular briefing. You can also propose a topic for a Post note. So if you think that there is an issue that we really need one of these big 4-page briefings on for MPs and Lords to use, you can suggest that. You can attend an event. So there's a series of online webinars coming up from Post around migration, for example. Those are the ones that are running at the moment. And if you are a PhD student, do go and take a look at Post's PhD fellowship opportunities. So these are funded by various research councils and charities. It's a chance to come and do a 3-month fellowship at Post as a PhD student. Do you remember that slide with the box of formal processes at the top and then the floating box of more political processes at the bottom of it about who uses research in Parliament? We're on to the bottom box now. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about all-party parliamentary groups, or APPGs. So what these are, APPGs, they are informal groups of MPs and members of the House of Lords. There's one for nearly every country in the world. There are many different subject groups from asthma to veterans. They are all different because they are run by MPs and Lords. So they are quite informal. If you think about it in a university context, an analogy could be that they're a bit like student societies. Some of them are very active. They meet regularly, they hold events, they produce reports. Some of them meet occasionally for a bit of a briefing session. So they are all different. The point of all party parliamentary groups is for MPs and Lords to develop their knowledge about a particular topic, to meet other MPs and Lords who are interested in that, to show they're interested in it, and to do some kind of campaigning work and awareness raising work about a particular topic. There are a couple of ways that I think you as researchers can use APPGs. Have a look at the full list of APPGs, take a look at them, see if there are any which are relevant to your research area, get in touch with them to ask, is there anything that I can contribute? Can I brief you? Are you having any events online that I can come along to, for example? They will all have contact details on their webpage. The other way you can use APPGs is to take a look at the members of a particular group, and that will give you a sense of which MPs and Lords are interested in that particular topic, which might be of relevance to your research. So if you do get in touch with an individual MP or a member of the House of Lords, what could they do with you? I'll just give you a few little ideas of what MPs and Lords can do. Parliamentary questions are a big tool in the kit of MPs and Lords. They can put a question to the government, either a written one or an oral question in the chamber, and get a response from the government. They can ask for a debate, so they can raise a particular issue and get a response, kind of long conversation response from a government minister about that issue. Obviously, MPs and Lords are going to be very heavily involved in legislative work as well, so looking at pieces of legislation. Many MPs and Lords will be a member of a select committee as well, so you might want to take a look at what select committee membership a particular member has before you contact them. And the last thing an MP could potentially do is raise an EDM, or an early day motion. This is a statement that MPs put out to show their opinion on something, and other MPs can put their names against that statement. So it's a bit of a campaigning tool for MPs to show their opinion on something. So that gives you a little flavour of the array of things that MPs and Lords are working on, or the tools they have at their disposal when they are working at Parliament. I think we have got a few minutes for some questions.
Hi, thanks, Naomi. Yeah, so many great questions. Just a few I just wanted us to think about together and talk through. The first one's a really good question. It's a classic question. It is, if post is the bridge between research and policy, but it's the Parliamentary Office of Science and Technology, is it only interested in science and technology and STEM research? No, absolutely not at all. Post is 31 years old now, and when Post was created 30 years ago, it was a technology assessment office. So yes, it was focusing on principally on science and technology and doing technology assessment. But Post has evolved over the years. In 2013, the social science section came in, colleagues work increasingly across disciplinary boundaries, and now Post is very much of the working methods that we engage with all sorts of research across the disciplines, including the arts and humanities. We work really closely with the AHRC, so absolutely Post is there using and advocating research across the disciplines. So that was the first thing I just wanted to clarify. The next thing was another great question, which was whether the libraries have access to academic journals. Generally, no. So if something is behind a paywall, it's pretty likely that the libraries can't access those academic articles. That we do have some subscriptions, the libraries do have some subscriptions, but not kind of systematically to academic journals. Post, because of the close contact that Post has with academic community, Post advisors are affiliated to universities, so they do have access to journal articles. But I think another really important point to add on to that is, even if they did have access to journal articles in the library, that's still really not the right kind of format of information for library colleagues to be engaging in. So, you know, you're writing your journal articles for peers. Our colleagues in the libraries, our colleagues in Post are not specialists to the same degree that you are. So really, the ideal is not to access or receive information at that level of granularity, but to get information in a much more succinct, much more layman, much more generalist format, in a way that non-specialists can understand your research. So definitely have a think about that when you're thinking about how you want to communicate your research to Parliament. Think probably a journal article is not the right kind of thing. Need to be thinking about how to communicate in the right way. So we had another question come in, a really important question about REF, Research Excellence Framework. We know that's something that's on your mind a lot. We know it's really, really important to you, whether we're aware of that. We absolutely are. We've been working with Research England for a couple of years now, to really help them understand what parliamentary impact looks like, so that their understanding really comes from us, from Parliament, the research users. So we've been working with them to raise their awareness and understanding. We wrote a briefing on research impact in legislatures along with colleagues in the devolved legislatures, and that briefing has fed into guidance for REF 2021. So now if you look at the REF guidance, you will see a long list of what they understand and what we understand to be parliamentary impacts, and you will also see a list of how you can evidence that. And Naomi, I think it's time to throw back over to you.
Sarah, thank you so much. Some fantastic answers again. Right, we've got a few minutes left then. So I wanted to leave you then with our advice for you as an early career researcher, and some first steps that we recommend you could usefully take. And the first thing I want to say to you is to trust your own expertise. I realise as an early career researcher, it might be a bit daunting to call yourself an expert or to claim that you know about a particular topic, but trust me, you will know more than the people at Parliament working in that area, and they really do want to hear from you, and they really would like any expertise or insights that you can give them. The second thing to take a little bit of time to do before you embark on any of this is to think about, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to engage with Parliament? What would you actually like to achieve? Is it that you have a particular campaigning drive and you want to get a policy changed? Is it that you would like to see your research being used by parliamentarians in debates? Is it that you would like to make some contacts with MPs and Lords? Or do you maybe just want to have a relationship with some committee staff so they know who you are? So what do you want to achieve before you start doing this? And you've started it already by looking at the list of select committees, but consider which areas of policy you think your knowledge or your research could potentially relate to, because then you'll be able to target your approaches much more succinctly. And then the final thing that I want to encourage you to do is position yourself to spot opportunities to be involved. You haven't got time to sit and trawl through the Parliament website and look for opportunities. So just position yourself and make sure that you can see them when they come up. So I suggest you do that by following relevant select committees, looking out for any inquiries that are relevant to you and submitting written evidence at that point. So it might be that you follow some committees on Twitter or you sign up for email alerts from a couple of select committees, and then onto your Twitter feed, into your inbox, it lands every time there's a new inquiry and you can quickly delete it or respond to it depending on if it's relevant. I also suggest that you sign up to the post mailing list. Look out for any of these post notes, so briefings for MPs and Lords. Look out for any of them that are being written that are of relevance to you or that you think you can contribute to. And if one comes up, that's when you get in touch and talk to the author about whether you could contribute. And the final thing I suggest is to have a look at the all-party parliamentary groups. If you spot one or two that are of relevance to you, just pop them an email, say, is there a way I can contribute? What activities are you running? Can I come along to anything? So if you kind of follow these steps, I think you'll have a really clear idea of the direction you're going in with working with Parliament, and you'll be positioning yourself in a good space to spot opportunities as they come up. We've thrown so much information at you in 45 minutes. Thank you for bearing with us. But if you want to have a look at our online resources and some how-to guides now, here's the web address to go to, parliament.uk/research-impact. If you are on Twitter, please make sure you're following us. We are at UKParl_research. And you have got a dedicated knowledge exchange unit here. It's Sarah, who you've met answering your questions. It's me, who you've met this afternoon, and our other colleague, Laura. And we are the faces on the other end of this email address, KEU, Knowledge Exchange Unit, KEU@parliament.uk. Please feel free to get in touch with us. We are here to advise and support you to make connections at Parliament and get your research being used as part of Parliament. I hope that's been a useful session for you. I'm really grateful to you for joining us. We'd like to say a big thank you to you for coming along, and I hope you found it useful.